Hi everyone, this is Stelios from the Data Scientist. Today with us on the Data Scientist podcast, we have Erica Stanford from the Crypto Club. And Erica, why don't you introduce yourself? You're probably going to do a better job at it than I will do.
Sure. So thank you very much for having me on, and good to see you again. So I run the Crypto Club. We've got the main crypto community and blockchain community in the UK now. So we have had a whole load of events. We've got an amazing community of 4,000 people running crypto, blockchain, DeFi startups, and working in innovation and in crypto and in payments in some of the world's biggest corporations as well. We've got a weekly newsletter, the Crypto Courier, so that summarizes all of the week's main news and events, and a monthly publication, Blockchain Industry Review. And last year it spent the full length of lockdown researching and writing all about the biggest scams in crypto for a book, Crypto Wars, which is out very soon.
Great, thank you. Maybe you'd also like to mention the carry aspect, because I'm sure that some people will be wondering what's like crypto carry.
Right, so the Crypto Club. So until lockdown, it was real life carry. So we had over 50 different lunches and dinners. So some were open events, some were closed invite only events in London and the main tech hubs in the UK. Getting together the main people working in crypto and blockchain and in the community, where it was lots of curry in nice settings, lots of some drinks, and getting together the main people in crypto for networking. And a lot of, the events were incredible and a lot of fun. Lots of people got new relationships, found new business partnerships, friendships, all sorts of sort of business relationships happened out of those. And it's amazing when you see get people getting together and able to chat naturally, sort of outside of an office or business setting. When you just get together and share food, share some drinks, a lot more has happened. So those events were great and did involve real life curry. Curry for two reasons: partly because it's Britain's national food. It's apparently the most eaten and favorite food in the UK, and also because Crypto Curry Club just sounded good. So
yeah, well, I can attest to the fact that the food was very good. I had the chance to attend one such event before the COVID apocalypse. For those of you who are listening,
hopefully many more after lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Those of you who are listening to this right now, right now it's around mid-May 2021, so things are opening up in London, but no networking events yet. So probably after everything opens up fully, then I'm gonna join another crypto carry event. So looking forward to that. And you mentioned that you spent last year looking into fraud and scams in the crypto space, and I think that's a very interesting topic for a few reasons. First of all, identifying scams before they really before everyone else figures out their scams is very difficult. And I think that in the last boom, like in the around 2017, 2018, the last bull market, before the current one, we're witnessing, we saw many scams around the ICO space. Some projects also just blew up, but not because they were scams, just because they were bad projects. And I think this gave the whole crypto world a very bad reputation to people who don't really have the proper understanding of what blockchain is and what it can do. So I'm really curious to hear about, first of all, your research. I mean, is there, could you, before we go into more depth, is there like some takeaway which you can give us in like a few sentences, maybe?
Gosh, a few sentences on crypto scams. If there's anything that promises or guarantees a set return, avoid it like the plague and run away as fast as you can. I think that's a fair takeaway. I mean, one of the main trends in the scam is that they make offers that are too good to be true, either that you can get something cheaper, or that if you send them X amount of money, you get X cent returns or X amount of returns. And through various means. Maybe it's through buying their cryptocurrency, which they say will go up, or through investing in them and they say they'll trade it for you, or they've got this magical trading bot, or they've got Bitcoin mining machines and they'll mine Bitcoin for you, and behind it is nothing but a giant Ponzi scheme. So if there's any offer that seems even 2% too good to be true, generally avoid it like the plague.
I see. And did you study only scams or projects which were just bad?
So
So they were not
I mean, the sad thing with the ICO era, and I mean, I should add with the ICO era, or the initial coin offering era, I should add, the actual concept as a way of sort of decentralizing projects and raising finances is very good. It's very
Mhm,
clever. There were some really cool projects, did really well out of it, and that it's a way that projects could raise money, small amounts of money from their law supporters, without having to just go to a few large corporate investors, for example. So as a concept, I find that the concept of the ICO is quite exciting. I think what was sad about this space is it just got a little bit over or taken advantage of, and a lot of projects just took advantage of the hype. So I think in reality, the statistics are 98% of the different ICO projects were either scams or have crashed totally and lost investors basically all of their money.
mhm,
So the end result is the same for the investors. And I think you've got the whole range in ICOs. I mean, you've got some that were just scams from the start. There's no denying it. The intention was to create a scam, and some of them did so very successfully, and parted with huge amounts of money,
mhm,
billions in some cases. And others, I think that you've got the whole range. You've got some that really were good, started with good intention to raise money, and are continuing to work on projects to this day, and everyone's very happy, and they're good. You've got others where maybe their intentions were good, and then suddenly they raised more money than they'd seen and didn't
mhm,
know what to do, and then either decided there was nothing holding them accountable, so then it's just easier to leave or to exit scam. But then others that raised money, and I think it's maybe not fair to call these a scam, but they didn't have a business case, they didn't have a use
mm,
case, and they didn't have the experience to run a project. And the problem with the ICO era, anybody could just create a cryptocurrency and just literally just copy,
yeah.
just replicate what was open source code, and create one out of thin air, and decide what you want to call it, and how many coins you want to have, and what value they'll be, and pay some freelancers on Fiverr to create a cheap website, and to give it a name and give you a logo, and to pay a listing site to list it, and then Bob's your uncle, you've got your own cryptocurrency.
Mhm,
And I think the reality for possibly the majority is it was people just being opportunistic about the space. Maybe their intention initially wasn't to scam, but certainly a large percentage of them were projects that, if one were to go perhaps to serious experienced investors, or to angels, or to VCs, or to banks, for example, or even to
mhm,
their friends and family, they wouldn't have received that investment, because there was no business use case. There was no need to have a cryptocurrency. There was no need for the project to be on blockchain. There
mm,
was nothing really of value to it. And the only reason they had a cryptocurrency was because it enabled them to raise money via the ICO. So I think you've got the whole gamut of projects, going from genuinely really good, to hopeless, to
yeah.
opportunistic, to some that basically when they raised the money, it just exit scammed, to the
Yeah.
ones that really just started out as scams at the core. So you've got the whole range. And then another thing we look at in the book is not just those projects, but also just how easy it has been to manipulate the markets in crypto, and some of the cases of where markets in crypto have been influenced, or just overtly manipulated.
And can I ask you about some maybe statistics regarding
Mhm.
the book? Like, for example, how many scams are you covering?
So we've got 10 chapters in the book. Some of
Hmm,
those are pure big scams, multi-billion-dollar Ponzi schemes,
hmm,
scams from the start. Other chapters, for example, there's one chapter about the ICO era, and some of the scam is a deep word, and I don't think it's fair to blast all of them with the word scam by any definition of the word. So one chapter just covers the ICO period, to say that some of those were scams and some of those were just companies maybe having a bit of fun in the space, which still ended up losing their investors' money. Some covers sort of the market manipulation and the pump and dumps, and then there's a couple chapters just focusing on projects that weren't scams by any definition of the word, but that were just victim to hack after hack after hack and a few unfortunate mistakes and sort of some of the biggest problems that have affected the crypto community. So
I see. And
it's hopefully a wide range of things, but how many scams have been in crypto? Gosh, so many, and constantly. I mean, almost every week now I'm approached with hearing about a new one that that's sometimes quite large and that I'd never even heard about. So they're all over the place and they're still starting now.
And you mentioned something interesting, that you're covering some Ponzi schemes, some ICOs. I think Ponzi schemes is a very old scam technique. This has been around for a very long time. And also in multi-level marketing, some people, say that some multi-level marketing companies are scams, other than, the products are good, whatever. I never really looked into this, into this myself in large depth. But the fact that there is a mechanism for scamming people and has been around for a few hundred years, and you can see this in different contexts, is very interesting. So I was wondering whether there are any other, let's say, frameworks for scamming people which our listeners should be aware of. Not because they want to create their own scams, hopefully, but because they're trying to avoid getting scammed.
I'm fairly sure there's better sources of information.
Yeah, so because ICOs, for example, I'm not sure that ICOs still apply, but the Ponzi schemes, for example, like you said, you're hearing someone telling you, give us money and then we're going to magically multiply it, then you can assume it's a Ponzi scheme, right? So have you seen any other patterns of this kind?
I mean, you've touched on the biggest, what I would say is the biggest and the worst trend. So where multi-level marketing meets crypto, and multi-level marketing is a gray area at best anyhow. I mean, it's legal in some products and in some countries, and I'd say dubious at best. You hear about some of the bigger multi-level marketing companies, and 99% of money of the people that have been involved lose money through them. You've got the top of the pyramid do very well, and then most people really struggle. So one can argue about the morals of multi-level marketing till the end of the day. But where multi-level marketing meets crypto has been a big problem. That was brought about by the OneCoin scam, which was started in 2014, and that's where they really brought multi-level marketing into crypto. And the premise is you've got multi-level marketing where people are paid really high incentives to bring more people into the project. So if I bring you in, I get a lot of money, and then if you bring somebody else in, I also get money, and if they bring somebody else in, I also get money, and so forth. So again, the people at the top of the pyramid do very well, and people often made so much money from bringing people in. So and where that got really big, because they're not just selling a product or vitamins or whatever, as is common with multi-level marketing, but they're selling these crypto packages where if you buy this package of coins, it will double in value or whatever in value. Or if you invest in this, we'll mine this Bitcoin for you and you'll get X% high returns. Or if you give us this money, we've got this amazing miracle trading bot that will trade Bitcoin for you and you'll get X returns. So where it got really bad is because you've got the really high incentives paid out from multi-level marketing, but with these get rich quick packages. And I think that the problem there is not just the scammers and the companies that are selling them. People buy into it and people believe it, and then they go to all their friends and their families and their communities and their followings to promote them because they get money from that. So you had religious leaders and community leaders all around the world promoting these scams to the congregations, and that's how they got so big and so pervasive. And again, it's also a gray area. You've got some people that knew it was scams from the start, and other people who really didn't know that there were scams, and in some cases still don't know that there are scams. So you've got a lot of people promoting things to their friends and families and so forth that they think this is good, this will make you money, and they don't really know that it's a scam and don't see that. So their victims themselves sort of promoting them and making it worse. So that's been a huge trend and a huge problem. And you know, you've got those in every aspect. I mean, you only need to type things like Bitcoin doubler into Google, and there's still so many sites promoting these Bitcoin doublers. Send us your Bitcoin, we'll send you double back in 24 hours or whatever. And you know, people don't get their Bitcoin back. But there isn't anything stopping these sites happening. I think the other big trend in the space is just the rise of influencers, and you've now got so many you know, influencers and celebrities getting into it and on the new platforms like TikTok and so forth. And you know, people, again, the same thing. Some of them don't care, and they know that they're getting either paid by the project to promote it, or they get a cut of everyone that invests underneath them. So they promote scams, and then they don't really care if it's a scam or not. They're happy to get the money. And again, other people that promote them don't necessarily know that it's a scam, and because you know the scams are more the more clever ones pay out initially, so that for the first people that get in, they see, well, this is good. I sent them my money and I got more money back, and so forth. So as far as they see, it works. And then it's only, you know, later down the line when the pyramid is getting bigger that it collapses and people lose all their money. So it's a very grey area as far as I can see of people that are promoting the scams, between some know exactly what they're doing and others are themselves victim to it. And one could argue that influencers could do more due diligence, but it is quite a grey area, and that's where the scams are getting really clever these days, and they're hiring the best people. And you do see people moving from scam to scam to scam. So the biggest promoters and the best marketers go from one to the other, so they accumulate more experience and intelligence on how to run them and make the next ones, you know, well, not bigger and better, but bigger and more effective.
So now I think that the next question, I think it's going to be the most interesting so far, because until now we just talked about scams in general, but now let's try to get a bit more specific, right? Would you, do you have any use cases you can share with us from the book which really stand out in one way or another? Maybe the size of the scam, or I don't know, it was a very clever scam or anything like this. Ideally, something which can also teach our listeners something, so that they're more careful in the future.
I mean, but perhaps one of the sort of the most relevant that still really applies today. I mean, one of the chapters covers the exchange Quadriga. So it was a Canadian crypto exchange which people really trusted because it was promoted as being Canada's main exchange, and it looked really good from the surface. And you know, they made claims about how people's crypto would be secured, but end of the day, they accumulated $250 million of Canadian dollars of people's cryptocurrency in one centralized pot. And then the founder died, you know, slightly mysteriously. And there's still a lot of people out there who don't believe by any definition of the word that the founder is dead. And there's still, you know, companies or people and legal cases trying to get his body exhumed to see if there's any proof that he did die or not. But you know, regardless of that, the founder is no longer there, and he was the only one that had access to the private keys that held $250 million of people's crypto. And we saw that again just recently, only a couple of weeks ago. There was a Turkish crypto exchange where they accumulated $2.2 billion of people's crypto, and again exactly the same thing, that it was all stored on one centralized pot effectively, and then the founder disappeared. He's done an exit scam. And why that's so relevant today? Well, yes, but I mean, it happened only so recently. And I think why that's so relevant is because there's so many ways of storing crypto, and I think it's really easy for people to see that if you've got crypto, you know, because crypto isn't necessarily the easiest, most user-friendly thing to get involved with and to store. And if you want to store it securely, traditionally people might want to store it offline or on sort of hard wallets and so forth, which aren't necessarily very easy to set up, and they go from being not easy to set up to horrifically almost impossible to work out how to use. And so people many people think if they buy crypto, they'll store it on exchange because then it's safer, because then the exchange will look after it for you, or this wallet will look after it for you. And that is, I think, a real thing to take note about is, yes, there are some crypto exchanges and some crypto wallets that do employ security measures and do look at how they can store crypto securely through various means, and have insurance in some cases. So that there are some cases where that security measures are taken, and there are other crypto exchanges and other crypto wallets and so forth where there's none of these security measures taken, where you really have to question why not, and what will happen with the crypto. Because once you send your crypto to them, you don't hold it. You might be able to withdraw it if they allow you to withdraw it, but if the founder or somebody wants to run away with it, then you've lost that money. So I think it is super relevant today, because there's, as we saw just a couple of weeks ago, people trusted the exchange and they made some big, I think, price offers and so forth that were maybe a bit too good to be true, but people sent their money, their crypto, to that person. So I guess the lesson of the story is, if you hold crypto, then double, triple, quadruple check where you store it, who has access to it, and who could potentially run away with it.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And talking about no, that's not a scam, but it's more like market manipulation, I guess. Any opinions on Elon Musk?
I don't know if you're in the crypto curry chat group. There's a lot of very opinionated opinions within the crypto community on Elon Musk. I don't even need to speak for myself there. We've got 250 people in a WhatsApp group and another separate private group, and
I'm not sure I'm on this WhatsApp group. Can you add me?
I'll add you to that. But we've had a lot of WhatsApp discussions, in various groups, and the general consensus within the crypto community is that it's total market manipulation. That he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yes.
And to be honest, I'd tend to agree in the sense that the guy holds a lot of Bitcoin, and apparently has made more money through Bitcoin than Tesla has made making Teslas, or Tesla has made more money holding Bitcoin than making Teslas. And Bitcoin's energy consumption, yes, it's high, but that hasn't drastically changed since they first bought into Bitcoin. This isn't a new story. Yeah. So, and look at Doge, and the thing is, everybody knows crypto is so volatile and so risky, and they've made huge amounts of money from buying low, and they know how much influence like Elon and Tesla and so forth have. They've got huge numbers of followers, and it's we had the same with John McAfee to a degree with the ICO period. It was one tweet from the guy sent these prices of these really volatile small cap cryptos sky high. And that was also market manipulation. And I think it's a little bit messy at the best of story. I think the markets are being played with, and not to the benefit of sort of the crypto development as a whole. And the reality is, from having volatility in crypto, those people who know what they're doing and with the most amount of resources can make huge amounts of money, and most people lose money. And if you happen to get in when it's low with large amounts of money, and then can influence crypto prices to go up drastically, you stand to make a lot of money if you're able to sell at the top of it and then push the prices back down through a bit of negativity. Then there's ways of making money. So it looks messy to me, and I think most people in the community, from what I've seen, think it's total market manipulation.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm very, very disappointed with the SEC that was very, very quick to chase random ICO projects, some of which were actually good, but they hadn't gone, through the proper process, etc. But no one is touching. But that's
also because regulation wasn't 100% clear at the time. Yes, a lot of people should have done more checks, but also regulation hasn't kept up with crypto now.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not even touching Elon Musk. So I know this one ICO project who's I mean, I lost touch with this guy. I hope he's all right, but I think his life was more or less destroyed because of the SEC, even though he had no intention of manipulating the market or anything like this, just because he tried to raise money through an ICO that didn't even happen really.
Right.
And then Elon Musk can just, manipulate the market.
Yeah.
No one cares about this. Then, there's a lockdown taking place and Elon Musk opens up his factories. No one can do anything about this. So I guess the message that the SEC is sending is that, if you're too big, then no one can touch you, which is very bad.
And I mean, Elon's point is valid, and it's hard to argue with that. Bitcoin uses a lot of energy and is bad for the environment.
But that's more like for the public, right? Because if
sure.
someone digs into it and you're going to look into the numbers, then you have to see how many of the mining pools are using renewable energy sources. What's the cost of Bitcoin versus, let's say,
well, I mean,
fiat?
aside from anything else, a lot of the people crying hypocrisy eat meat.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm vegan, so biased, but if anyone eats meat, they can't say a single thing.
No, I agree. I completely agree with you. I eat meat, but I think you're 100% right. It's so it's basically an argument that many people will buy, but not people like me or you. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's a valid argument, which is why it's hard to argue against. And it is a problem I do see in the crypto space, in that there's so many startups. I mean, in the UK, you've got a whole load of companies basically in a queue waiting to be regulated, just sat in limbo, not knowing what is happening. And we still see a lot of crypto startups. I see them all the time that are want to be above board, want to be regulated, are paying lawyers a lot of money to find out what they have to do and how can they get regulated. And the general answer to a lot of them is not a lot yet, or we don't know yet. And I think one of the I mean, this is easy to say, and I know that I would hate to have to work in a regulatory space. I think that would be incredibly stressful. But on a sort of we've had Brexit, we've had coronavirus, we've had lockdown, they've had other priorities also, which are on a bigger scale than regulating crypto companies. And I do appreciate that. We've had a really hard year and a half, but one of the problems I see is where you've got some projects that are scams. I mean, there's some that we've looked at recently. They say, oh, we're regulated by whatever authority. We're going to be listed on whatever, global whatever stock exchange. Where we've got a partnership with Visa, with MasterCard, with whatever it is, and they make these claims, and because there's no regulation, people believe that, and that they're not regulated by whatever entity. They don't have these partnerships. They're not going to be listed on whatever exchange. And the problem is, where you've got sort of the good companies that want to do well, it's very hard for them to stand out from the scams who can basically get away with saying whatever they want. So they make themselves look much better because they can just say, oh, we've got this partnership, we've got this, we've got whatever. So for the sake of the industry, and for, I think, getting rid of a lot of the scams, if there could be some sort of blue tick of approval that is given to the projects, where the regulators, or people can see, well, yes, you're a work in progress, but we can see that your intentions are good.
Yeah.
Stamp of approval, compared to the ones where they really are just scams from the start.
Yeah, I think there are many, like startups in general, not all of them, but many of them, they tend to be a bit, let's say, loose with buzzwords and with, the way they describe the advisors they have on board and partnerships and all that. But I think in blockchain, we've seen this happening on a whole different level, 100%, right? And again, it's I think what Elon Musk is doing, to go back to the previous point, it's probably not good for the crypto community. It's like other celebrities, they say all kinds of opinions, and people who do not understand blockchain in depth, they trust them, and it's very difficult to understand what's a scam and what's not a scam, what's a valid opinion.
And that's the problem. And even I had someone ask me recently, well, about the dogecoin when it's being pumped, and you've got all of those other Shiba Inu tokens and whatever, all of those other dog related meme coins, and I don't even know the name of them. And they were saying, well, these are very cheap compared to Dogecoin. Does that mean they're undervalued? Should one buy them? It's like, no, like they still, they still have no overwhelming purpose. And yes, might they go up 10x? Yes, of course, it's crypto. Anything could happen. Might they crash because there's no use or value to them, or because someone exit scams or whatever? So yeah, it's such a volatile and such a manipulated market that everyone's always asking, is this a good time to get into crypto? And it's like, well, God knows. God knows, because it's the way it's going, it's not really about the economy, it's not really about the scarcity or whatever. It's pretty much who's manipulating the markets at the moment.
Yeah, and we see lots of market manipulation happening right now, and we hear all kinds of opinions about the price of Bitcoin. My personal opinion is that we're going to see a bull run until the end of the year, and then there's going to be a tipping point where we will either go into a super cycle or things will just crash, and probably the price will stabilize. I don't know, will be 70K, 60K, 80K. I don't know, but I'm just saying this based on what we've seen, what happened in the prior bull runs, even though, the ratios and everything, you can just carry them over from one bull run to another. But this was more or less this picture. The people who believe in a super cycle, maybe they're over optimistic. It's really difficult to know right now, but what is your opinion around that?
My opinion is I've long ago given up even trying to have any pretense or thought or opinion on the matter, because it's just so heavily manipulated. I have absolutely no idea, and I think that's the one thing that I've seen over and over again. It seems to sometimes defy logic. So I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a trader. I don't understand the markets well enough to know that, and just from what I've seen, it seems to be more subject to manipulation than anything else. I mean, on a practical basis, if you look at Bitcoin, that one of the wonderful things about Bitcoin is unlike with fiat currency, you've got 21 million Bitcoins will ever be produced. A whole few million of those have basically been lost forever, because on people's computers or hard drives or whatever that they threw away, or lost behind the sofa kind of situation. And then you've got a number of those that people really aren't moving. That the sort of the early Bitcoin holders have huge numbers of Bitcoin. They're not moving those. They're storing those for a long term value. Effectively, it's the equivalent of being in a gold vault. So the circulation of Bitcoin is low, and every year there's less Bitcoin produced, and every year there's more people getting into Bitcoin. So was it this year or last year? It was PayPal and Square buying up jointly 100% of the newly mined Bitcoin. So the actual new Bitcoins coming into circulation are less and less every year, and there's more and more people wanting to get in terms of institutions, in terms of companies buying in and holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So and on a practical level, supply and demand, supply is getting less and demand is getting more. So that might imply that Bitcoin might in the long term go up. Just if you're looking at the world as a whole, the general economy, other than for a few pharma companies, is not going well. We've got super high inflation in some countries. We've got other countries printing money like they've never seen. Like it's like it's a game. And there's countries around the world where inflation is crazy high. Others are printing. Trust from what I've seen in governments, in central banks, in the traditional financial system is lower than ever. Certainly the younger generation have less trust than probably previous generations would have done in the traditional system. And then if you look at the countries and those who are using Bitcoin the most, it isn't the UK, it isn't America, it's Venezuela, it's Russia, it's UK, and it's countries where trust in the local currency is low. and where people literally use Bitcoin in some cases as a lifeline, because if they had to rely on their local currency, they would literally be starving because of inflation being so high. So when you look at sort of real users of crypto, and yes, it's the institutions piling and hoarding, but actually you've got, I think, more and more people seeing Bitcoin or potential stable cryptocurrencies as being, in many cases, better, safer, more transparent than fiat currency. Plus, you've got all this sort of institutions and corporations hoarding into Bitcoin. So I think for Bitcoin, where even a few years ago banks were saying, "Oh, the Bitcoin, that's a scam. We can't touch Bitcoin." And I think that argument for Bitcoin is now harder for many people to sustain. But that saying, you've still got these thousands of other cryptocurrencies that have varying degrees of use, some of which, Ethereum is one great, lots and lots of use cases. And, and then going down the scale of useless to scam to have been dead, and the teams left them years ago and are still being pumped and manipulated around.
Mm-hmm. And I think you touched upon a very interesting point, that I think adoption of something which maybe some people are underestimating, and those who are calling all of crypto a scam, they're underestimating the fact that cryptocurrency has just started out, because it's not like everyone is using cryptocurrency, so adoption is growing, especially in developing countries. So there are some very good use cases. For example, Bitcoin is now accepted as a store of wealth. So now that's the current paradigm. So I think that in the long run, even those who are very skeptical about cryptocurrencies, they will probably realize that, yes, crypto is here to stay, because it's going to be adopted by more and more people across the world, and especially in developing countries. And that's obviously a completely separate topic from the millions of projects out there, some of which might have real value, some of which might be scams, some of which might have questionable business models. But that's always the case with startups. But I guess something which is very different with the blockchain space is that, in contrast to the mainstream startup world, in blockchain, we've seen more money, more flash, more people just making it big out of sheer luck because they invested in some altcoins or whatever.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, if you look at startups in general, 90% fail, and if you look at the ICO era, it was 98 instead of 90. And yes, so there are more scams and more hype and more Lambos and all of the excitement. And I think what is happening now, yes, you've still got the scams, yes, you've still got the market manipulation, but then also you've got the companies that have been going since maybe they raised money in an ICO, or maybe they've been going for a few years and raised money separately, that have been working quietly on the technology ever since, and now are releasing incredible technology. And what I see over and over again, the brain drain of people leaving incredibly well-paying and senior jobs in banking, in retail, from corporates, from government, even from defense and so forth, to work in crypto startups. And some of them are people that just got into crypto early and made enough money that they don't need a job anymore, or that they're more passionate about it. Other people are frustrated by how slow the corporate world or the traditional banks move, and see how much faster things are moving in crypto. So almost every day I'm approached by somebody different. Somebody had a C-suite or really senior position in some sort of global corporate. Really, really, intelligent, successful people messaging to say that they've left their job and they've just taken on a job in a crypto startup or in a crypto blockchain, whatever company, and who should they meet or talk to in the space. And they're people that are just going to work in these startups and in the space because they think it's exciting, because they're more passionate about it, because they see how fast it's moving, because they can see more of a change. So I think yes, the sort of the dark side and the scam still exists, and I think as regulation kicks in and the space matures a little bit, I'd like to think that will go. And scams exist in every space. We've seen more scams in lockdown than ever before. And that's on every platform, Facebook Marketplace or text messages or whatever. Some
Or
of them
yeah,
are related to crypto,
phone
some
calls.
of right, and some relate to crypto, others relate to God knows what else. So scams have become more prevalent in general life. I mean, even just I see how many scam calls my my relatively elderly parents get. It's constant every day. There's HMRC or someone calling from India or God knows where, not from saying you owe us this money or you've got to do this or we're going to switch your internet off or whatever, and it's really sad. So I think I guess just going off piece, scams aren't unique to crypto, but what I do see is how fast the technology is accelerating, and some of the really good projects, companies, payments firms, and so forth are coming out and are making some incredible impacts to shaking up how the world does finance. I mean, just one example, the remittance industry is barbaric. They charge extortionate amounts of money to the poorest people in the world. You've got 2.5 billion people in the world roughly who don't have access to banking, and the average people paying in remittances is, well, it was 6.9%. I was recently told it's now 7.something%, but up to 30% of all of some people's income just goes to paying these remittance companies to get money from A to B, because they don't have access to bank accounts. They have no other way of sending money digitally. And now you've got a few of these crypto startups coming in and saying, well, yeah, we can do this for you for 1 or 2%, which is what it should cost. Of course, there's still costs to moving money, especially sort of micro amounts of money, but it doesn't need to cost 7% or 30% or whatever. And that 5% or 10% saving to a lot of these people, that's the difference between if you eat today or not. So there's some crypto startups just doing the most incredible work and projects. So I think in general the space is very exciting and is moving very fast, and there's just so many incredibly smart people just moving to work in the space every day. So I think in a couple of years' time it will be a very different space.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in 5 years and then in 10 years, it's going to look even more different, and it's going to keep evolving and growing 100%, right? So thank you. I think this was a very interesting conversation, and I think it went longer than I thought it would. But that was great. No worries. It's I think we could actually have a call in 10 minutes. Otherwise, it could have been even longer. Sure. But where people can find more about you, like the Crypto Carry Club, Erica Stanford, the book, can you share some more details?
Yeah. So we've got the Crypto Carry Club. So it's just cryptocarryclub.com. For information, I'll send you a link where people can subscribe to the newsletter and the publication. They're totally free to receive as well, but that's also on the website. The book is called Crypto Wars: Fake Deaths, Missing Billions, and Industry Disruption. So that's available from Amazon and all good retailers. That's available for pre-order now. Please do buy the book, but hopefully in reading it, it's designed to be fun and easy reading, and sort of I know it's not a subject one can really make light of, but it is designed to be accessible, sort of quick, simple reading, to give everyone an overview of how some of the biggest scams and problems have come about, and hopefully give enough information that people are able to notice scams and not fall for them.
Great. Excellent. And I guess something which also our listeners should know is that as soon as things open up in London, there are going to be more crypto carry networking events.
Hopefully, as soon as lockdown is officially eased, as soon as it's safe and legal, there will be real life crypto.
And which other cities? Is it only in London?
We had them in a few other cities. We had them in Bristol, Cambridge, and Oxford until lockdown. So. And we've had people asking if we can run them in Manchester and in Edinburgh. There's a strong team of supporters from Edinburgh asking if we could please start them there too. So we'll see. It's just really dependent on coronavirus.
Yeah, it's a bit early, but it's good to know our listeners who are also listening from other cities in the UK that there will be some crypto carry events coming up. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Good to see you again.
Yeah, well, it was my
you
pleasure.
Soon at a curry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, looking forward to it. So thank you, and thanks everyone for listening to this episode. If you want to read or hear more about AI, data science, blockchain, make sure to visit thedatascientist.com. So that was Stelios. Thanks everyone, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you. See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.